Alright, so today we are taking what we learned yesterday a step further and going from having one triangle to having a couple of triangles that are attached, where this is a multi-step process to solve for our variable. So first one here, we got two triangles attached, and we can see that both of them are 45, 45, 90s. So we'll be using this rule right here for both of them. And so starting off, we have a number on the hypotenuse of this triangle, and we're trying to figure out what the leg of this triangle is. So we got to go from here. We got to figure out what this side is that is kind of the connecting side between the two, and then we can go on to the x. So that's a leg on that side of the line, right? And then on the other side of the line, it becomes a hypotenuse for the other triangle. So we're going from a hypotenuse to a leg, and then we're going from a hypotenuse to a leg. So remembering that the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times the leg. So the hypotenuse, which is 12, is going to be equal to the square root of 2 times the leg. So then we divide by the square root of 2. That'll cancel out there. And then we've got to fix that 12 over the square root of 2 so that it doesn't have a radical in the denominator. So multiply by the square root of 2 on top and bottom. So now we have 12 square roots of 2 over 2 equals our L. So now we can transition from that being the leg to being the hypotenuse for the other side. And now we're basically going to do the exact same thing again. All right, so this 12 square roots of 2 over 2 is now the hypotenuse, and we want to find out the leg. So the hypotenuse, 12 square roots of 2 over 2, is equal to the square root of 2 times the leg, which is x. So to get the x by itself, try and divide by the square root of 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over the square root of 2 over here. And for multiplying by 1 over the square root of 2, we have a square root of 2 on the bottom, we have a square root of 2 on the top. So those will cancel each other out. And we have 1 times 12, or just 12 over 2, which ultimately is 6 for our x. Questions on that one? All right, so then this one, next one, is similar. It's just kind of in reverse. We're starting with a value on a leg of this 45, 45 triangle, and we're trying to go to the hypotenuse. So on this one, that side is the hypotenuse, and the other side is the leg. And so we know that the hypotenuse h has to equal the square root of 2 times the leg, which is 11, or h equals 11 square root of 2. And now we're going to look at that as a leg again. And we know that this x being the hypotenuse of this triangle is going to be the square root of 2 times this leg. Right? So x is going to equal the square root of 2 times 11 square root of 2. And so we've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. We're just going to make that 11 times 2. It's going to cancel out the square root with those two square roots of 2 times each other. And so our x is going to be 22. All right, so then these next examples throw in some 30, 60, 90s. So first one here is actually two 30, 60, 90s attached. They're giving us the hypotenuse of this 30, 60, 90. And we're trying to find the long leg of the bottom 30, 60, 90. Now remember, in a 30, 60, 90, everything has to be related to the short leg. All right, so in order to solve for this long leg down here, we've got to go from this hypotenuse. Got to find that short leg right there. And then we're going to get the long leg on that one. And then we're going to go from the long leg there to get the second short leg. And then we can figure out the long leg from there. So we're going from the 8 to the short leg to that long leg, which is now a hypotenuse. So I'm going to flip over to this side and go into the short leg and then to the long leg. So we know that the relationship on 30, 60, 90, if we follow this, is that the hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg, and the longer leg is square root of 3 times the short leg. So this being a hypotenuse, that 8 is going to equal 2 times the short leg, divided by 2, and you know that short leg is 4. So we're going from that short leg on down to this long leg. So now we know that the long leg is equal to the square root of 3 times the short leg, which is 4. Or you can call that 4 square roots of 3. So it's taking us from the hypotenuse to the long leg of the top triangle, which now that 4 square roots of 3 represents the hypotenuse of the bottom triangle. So 4 square roots of 3 being the hypotenuse is going to equal 2 times the second short leg. So 4 square roots of 3 being the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times that second short leg. So we divide by 2 again. I have 2 square roots of 3 equal to the second short leg. And then from that short leg, now we can get to the x, to the second long leg here. So x being the long leg is going to be equal to the square root of 3 times the short leg, which is 2 square roots of 3. And we have the square root of 3 times the square root of 3. So that'll be 2 times 3. The square roots of 3 will cancel each other out. Just leave us with a 3. So ultimately, our x value is 6. That's the reason these are called multi-step spectral right triangles. So, next one, we have a 45-45-90 attached to a 30-60-90. They're both sharing our hypotenuse. So we're going from a leg of the 45-45-90. We got to get the hypotenuse here, and then once we know the hypotenuse, we can go straight to the short leg because that's where the x is on the short leg. So this one doesn't have nearly as many steps as the last one. All right, but we do have to make sure that we switch between rules for one type of triangle to the other. So starting off, we're using a 45-45-90. So remember, it's the square root of 2 times the leg for the hypotenuse. So this hypotenuse here is going to equal the square root of 2 times the leg, which is 4. That's going to give us 4 square roots of 2. And so now, so we've taken care of the 45-45-90. Now we got to go from the hypotenuse of the 30-60-90 to the short leg. And so hypotenuse to the short leg, hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. So the hypotenuse, 4 square roots of 2 is equal to 2 times the short leg, which is x. Divide by our 2. We get 2 square roots of 2 for our x value. So, same stuff we did yesterday, just have 2 things attached to each other, so you've got to make sure you're following the right rules and recognize when you switch from one side, maybe a leg on one side, but then it's a hypotenuse on the other, or vice versa. Or you may have a long leg for a 30-60-90 that turns into a hypotenuse, something like that. So, questions?